Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pete Carroll Was Right, the confusingly named Alabama football live show. I'm Carter, that's Mitch, and we are here to talk all things Alabama football with you. Well, that was not as satisfying as it would have been if LSU's season weren't the utter dumpster fire that it is. But I don't know, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking. I don't know if this was during the game or before the game or whatever. Like when the last time that there was this big a gap between Alabama and LSU, or not, or that's actually. I have no idea when the last time there was this big a gap between Alabama and LSU.
The 90s?
Yeah. But I was thinking, like, the thing I was actually thinking about is aside from this year, what's the second biggest gap between Alabama and LSU since Saban's been the head coach?
What was the final score in 2013? Wasn't it like
38-17, maybe?
Something like that?
Yeah, that's up there. You know, I honestly was thinking 2018. I think that was the biggest margin of victory was 2018. Yeah. And that Alabama team was just so good. But like, it's just, but whatever is number two, like, I guess my point is that it just pales in comparison to the gap between the teams this year. And obviously there's a lot that goes into like the current state of the LSU program.
You've got Orgeron begging for grad transfers. Like
that was normal. The thing. Yeah. You can, like, we can debate to the extent to which this is like, is this a 1 year thing in terms of like, you know, all the turnover and the midseason opt-outs and like this was going to be a pretty decent fall off from last year regardless. And then there have been all kinds of extenuating circumstances since then. But like to the point where your head coach is saying like, we're not going to be good, or like next season depends on us getting a lot of grad transfers who can play right away. Like, that's a bad sign. That's a really bad sign.
Yeah. I think I guess they, you know, coming into the year, it was always going to be an issue defensively. They just lost. I mean, the defense was good last year. It got better as the year went on. It was never great. And then they lost so many guys. So like they were always going to give up points this year. It was just a matter of the offense. And I mean, you know, they definitely got like kind of unlucky there. You know, Brennan gets hurt and, you know, Jamar Chase opts out and then Terrace Marshall also opts out. And now their tight end apparently is leaving. So, you know, just weirdness.
Yeah. I mean, like because they were pretty good for a while regardless, if this is a regular season and and Chase doesn't opt out and they keep Marshall, like this is probably the third best offense in the SEC, like and closer to the Alabama Florida tier, I think, than to whoever is the next best. Exactly. Well, like I don't know, somewhere between like Ole Miss and Alabama Florida, like in that range. So, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't feel too sorry for him. So
no, I don't know. Like, anybody have any big impressions from the game? I mean, it feels weird that we have to sort of talk about this game like we would talk about Alabama against, I don't know, Vanderbilt. But you know, there are some impressions to be had. So
yeah, I mean the bust on the long passing touchdown has now been discussed ad nauseum, right, or the miscommunication, I guess you would call it. So I don't know that there's a whole lot else to go. I guess we can talk about Devontae, who is now
he's pretty good.
Like, Ben, on Twitter earlier this season, you said something like, "Oh, Devontae's like getting all these records, but I don't really care that he's getting them. Like, he's getting them in 4, and Amari did it in 3." Well, now he's like doing this season what Amari literally. I just like, some of you may have seen this on Twitter. Like, I went and calculated like total EPA per game, like based on receptions for these guys. And he's still got a ways to go to catch Amari in terms of like total contribution in the season. But on a per game basis, he's like a full expected point added per game above Amari's 2014 season, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, when I said that, my impression obviously at the time was that it was really sort of, they were incomparables. But now, like, if he's going to do this in this season, I mean, these college records are always going to be difficult, right? Because it's like guys are playing
after Jalen Waddle's injury, or
it must have been like right. It was whatever day he like tied the record, which had to be like maybe right after. I mean, because his usage obviously is really spiked.
Like he's gone like thermonuclears. Like I remember, I essentially agreed with what you were saying then, but he's just rocketed up since then, and it's like the production is absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
there were like some people. I mean, I remember seeing a few like draft projections last year. I guess it was before Devontae had like officially said he was coming back, that were thinking that he might be the top receiver coming out, like that he was sort of wide receiver one. And I think a lot of it was based on I think it was like target rate or something.
I remember that there were a lot of people who were like, based on the target shares for the target team, they were like, oh, why is Henry Ruggs like a top receiver? Like
right.
People who were the like fourth most targeted guys on their team like aren't great wide receivers. And it's like, okay, you really got to look at the context for this one. This is not a normal situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I mean, like, I understand that a lot of it has to do with Ruggs' speed, but like, if you were to tell me like which of those three receivers from last year was going to choose to come back, just looking at like watching them play and like watching their production, and I probably would have said it was Ruggs is the one that's going to come back, and then Ruggs leaves and he even goes ahead of Judy. But like, because obviously that sort of player is highly coveted. But yeah, I mean, Devontae, like last year's team, I mean, I would say he's the second best receiver on the team.
Yeah. I mean, he's just like, I don't know. You can go with various superlatives for the different, like, obviously Judy is just like the most, I don't know, twitchy, I guess. Like, however you would say that he just like jukes guys out of their like literal souls. And then Jalen Waddle is like, explosive, fast, whatever, and Ruggs has the straight line speed. But Devontae just like gets open and has probably the best hands of any of them, I would say. And so, like, I don't know, he's kind of like Coop in that sense that like,
I was gonna say, better hands than Coop.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's nothing about him that's overwhelming in any sense. He just gets open and catches the ball. And that's
always
the most important thing for a wide receiver. Like Ed O came out after the game and said, like, it was our game plan to take him away. And then he had 200 yards in the first half.
I mean, I guess that's the other point about the sort of the incomparables with him and Coop is just, I mean, this offense is really good. And the 2014 offense was very productive, obviously. But they weren't running the stuff that this team is running, and Coop was still obviously that productive. I would actually, I don't know, like is Devontae approaching this sort of usage rates that Coop had in 2014?
I would think post Waddle injury.
That's what I mean. Yeah, just looking exclusively post Waddle, not the whole year.
Probably, like he's, I don't know. I would have to look at the number. Like he has like 80 catches on the year, so he's not anywhere near the rate overall. Because Coop had like 124 in that season, and you can even see it in like the numbers I looked at. Like he like on an EPA per play basis, it's like way in Devontae's favor because obviously like Coop was just getting every screen, every single touch in that offense that they could get to him. So there were not nearly as many like big explosive plays because they were relying on him for the big plays and the just like move the chains plays. So
yeah.
But yeah, if you extrapolate the production from post Waddle injury over a whole season, I would bet it's approaching that usage rate.
Well, it's like because the offense is so effective, right? Well, at least like down the vertical passing game compared to 2014 is so much more effective that they can do in one Devontae reception what it may have taken 3 or 4 Amari Cooper receptions to do.
Yeah. Yep. This offense is just ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Is it? How does it compare statistically to what LSU was doing last year? Like, what do the advanced stats say about that?
Yeah, I don't know any like direct comparisons off the top of my head, but I think in a lot of them it's like right there.
It can't be that far off.
No. Like the only question
in a lot of raw numbers, I think it's better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, and sure, you can say like, you know, like would you take Joe Burrow last year over Mac? Like you'd probably take Burrow. Like,
yeah, I might take a lot of LSU's individual players.
Right. Like I
might even take. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't like. You could pick one way or the other on Devontae or Chase, I think. But like, I don't know. You take Jefferson or Marshall over John Mechie, probably, right?
Yeah. Well, the wide receiver. If Alabama had Waddle, the wide receiver groups are like very close. Like basically, like you could kind of go either way on that. Without Waddle, it's definitely, you know, swayed more toward LSU. I might even take, you know, Clyde over Najee.
Yeah,
but that's close.
Yeah. Moss is more productive. Line. Oh, Alabama's offensive line is way better.
Yeah.
Way like unequivocally.
Which I think honestly is why they're able to kind of approach 2019 LSU levels.
Yeah. I mean, you can't throw it deep as much as Alabama throws it deep without, you know, a phenomenal offensive line. Right. And Mac just has all day back there just to, you know, take deep shot after deep shot after deep shot. And I mean, yeah, I know I think we feel like we were chatting about this during the game a little bit, but I mean, this is probably, I don't know if this is the best Alabama offensive line under Saban, but it's definitely the best pass blocking offensive line.
When you can sit there and especially when they had Jalen, and if they maybe get Jalen back, I don't think we're getting our hopes up on that, but I think we all got a little jolt of adrenaline when we saw him like rehabbing with no cast, like no boot, no like, I mean, I'm not going to count on that, but like, when he's in this offense, especially, and even without him, because Devontae is so good, like you can sit there, you have this offensive line that's so good. You can just put 3 receivers out there, and then you can go max protect. And so you're going to give Mac like 6 seconds to throw, and somebody's going to get open, even with just 3 receivers in the pattern. And that, I mean, you can't stop that. And there's nobody in the country with corners good enough to stop that. Like that's on Split Zone Duo today, the spiritual successor to podcast Ain't Played Nobody. They had Seth Galina on to like what's the weakness for all the playoff contenders, and there's not like Clemson's corners are pretty good, but not like. I think PFF actually just rated Alabama as like the best secondary in the country. Yeah. And nobody has the outside corners they do, like not even close.
Yeah.
But like Ohio State, like Sean Wade has been kind of meh at outside corner. Like he was amazing for them in the slot last year, but he has been pretty underwhelming at outside corner. And I don't know who their other outside corner is, but he's not like a first round talent type of guy. So there's not like. honestly, if there was anybody with the outside corners, it's probably LSU, because like Stingley and Ricks are probably as good as any other pair in the country. And so, like, it just, I don't know, there's nobody out there that can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I could say, in the raw, against just a good. I mean, it's conceivable to me that a team could not stop the Alabama offense, but somewhat limit them without Waddle. Like if you have a good game plan that really involves like really putting like a couple guys on Devontae at all times, and if you're able to get pressure, with some edge rushers, like I could see it. Like I mean, I don't know what limiting them means. 35 points maybe, like over the course of a full game where Alabama's trying to score a touchdown in every possession, like 35. I don't know if they're going to really do worse than 35.
Yeah.
But with Waddle, it would just be impossible. I mean, it really would be impossible.
Well, it's just like, I mean, the thing you need to do is the thing that really any truly elite defense needs to do is you need to be able to get pressure with 4 and then devote as many resources on the back end as you can. But Ohio State's defensive line is not what it has been the past couple years. Their secondary is not that great. Clemson's secondary, like their secondary is their best unit on defense this year. And it's not, I don't know, it's not as good as Alabama's. Like they're good back there, but they're not like, but their front on its own has not been, and they've had some guys hurt, but like this is not like the 2018 defensive line for them. Like this is a line that really needs like Venables to work his magic to get pressures on guys. And when you do that against this Alabama team, you're gonna leave guys vulnerable on the back end, and especially like I just don't see how anybody keeps them under 35.
Yeah. And I mean, and those teams that we're talking about right now, like, who knows if they're going to make the playoff?
Yeah.
Mitch, who does FBI give a better shot to, Clemson or Ohio State at this point?
Ohio State, I would think, especially now that they've like changed the rules and everything.
So. Are they officially in the title game?
Yeah.
Okay. So so they're yeah, okay. So now with that, like they're definitely getting in.
Unless it would be the funniest thing in the world if they lost to Northwestern. They're not going to. Northwestern is terrible, right, but like
are they going to play this week? Did they find like enough? Did I see something about that? They were trying to find another opponent for them or something?
If they did, I haven't heard anything about it.
Okay. So they're going to be in. So they're going to get into 5-0, 6-0. All right. What are the odds that if Clemson beats Notre Dame, that the committee puts Texas A&M in ahead of Ohio State? Is it basically 0?
In front of Ohio State, like undefeated Big Ten champ.
Undefeated 6-0, 6-0. 0% that Texas A&M goes ahead.
0. Yeah.
I don't see any way that happens. Like if Clemson just absolutely blasts Notre Dame, then maybe it's Clemson, Ohio State, and Texas A&M at the 4 spot. But
like if they were to be able to like write Notre Dame's win off against Clemson as just purely being a result of them not having Lawrence.
Yeah.
Right.
But outside of that, yeah. So Ohio State controls their own destiny, like almost certainly. All right. Well, before we get, I feel like we're probably going to want to talk more about the playoff later. What about the defense on Saturday? I mean, Carter, you mentioned the first long touchdown. Miscommunication. Obviously, Joe shouldn't have blitzed. But what else? Anybody have any other thoughts on that performance?
I mean, like LSU had a good script at the beginning of the game. They got a third of the yards on the 2 touchdowns, which were both just like bus miscommunications. And other than that, they really didn't do a whole lot. So I don't I mean, Will Anderson is finally starting to get home, so that's very nice to see. Yeah, I don't know. Like, ultimately, aside from the two busts, like, it was kind of more of the same of what we've seen from them the past month and a half or so, which is very nice.
Yeah. Mitch, what did you think?
Yeah, I kind of come away thinking like we're just gonna have to accept that there's gonna be probably a big bust or two every game. Like I think that's just the reality for every team in college.
Yeah.
Like we are long gone are the days of like just complete dominance against like decent offenses. But yeah, Will Anderson was great. Chris Allen, I thought, played pretty well.
Yeah, every week.
Yeah.
And Christian Harris was a monster.
Like just love seeing those guys develop. But
Chris Allen has done a very like Ryan Anderson, Anthony Jennings type thing.
Yeah.
Where earlier in his career he was just kind of like steady, and he earns a job later in his career, and you're like, okay, well, I guess he's not going to screw up. That's fine. And then he's just come on to the point where you're like, oh no, this guy is actually like, this is a real playmaker right here.
Yeah. I think on the busts. So, I do sort of feel like it's worthwhile to kind of like distinguish between like two different types of busts, right? So like the busts that I think are, the kind that you just have to accept that are going to happen is like the one against Auburn right before the half when what's his name, Seth Williams dropped the touchdown pass. When it looked like Daniel Wright maybe was the one who kind of took a false step there, and then the guy was gone. Like that's the kind of bust that I agree. Like that is just going to happen, and you just have to hope that the quarterback overthrows it or the wide receiver drops it or something happens and it doesn't result in a touchdown or it results in a touchdown, and you just have to shrug and move on. But like the busts against LSU are the sort of busts that aren't even coming as a result of like making a mistake during the play.
Yeah. It's
like
not
those
not,
like the first one is I mean go ahead, Carter.
No, I was just gonna it's not even really like somebody made a mistake. It's not somebody screwed up their job. It's somebody didn't get a call. Right. And it's I don't know. On the one hand, it's frustrating because it's like, why, who like, and it makes you wonder like whose fault is that? Like, was someone?
I have no idea.
Right. Like, was the error on the sender or the receiver? Is the question there? Like, you can say, okay, Job didn't get the call, but should he have been paying more attention, or should someone else have, yelled something louder? Like it's so hard to place the blame for something like that. Is the only thing.
When I posted that thread about that play, somebody screenshotted a comment that Saban made where he said that the safeties have to communicate it down, but it's like Daniel Wright seemed to know that Job wasn't supposed to blitz. And Daniel Wright is he's safety on that side. So like he knew, but maybe he didn't communicate it, or maybe he didn't communicate it loud enough. Like, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so difficult. You're right. It's like, how do you know no idea who to assign the blame to? And it's not even really necessary for us to like assign the blame. It's just like, it's just an unfortunate thing. The second touchdown, I mean, that mistake might have been even worse. I mean, Malachi Morris lined up on the wrong side.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get at all. Like you even make some mistakes. Somebody's gonna blitz when they shouldn't blitz, whatever. Like, but like, the guy just lines up. Like you got the slot receiver on one side and your slot corner lines up on the other side. I mean, that was weird, right?
Yeah. To be clear, I was not referencing the second.
Okay.
I was more referencing like the complexity, like the increased complexities and
that's defense fair. Totally fair.
And the difficulties with communicating and just people trying to make plays and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. No, totally agree. Yeah, I mean, there's sort of like a scale, right? Like the Daniel Wright one, that's like the most against Auburn, like that's like the most excusable one. And this next one with like Joe blitzing when he shouldn't have blitzed based on just like a slight change in receiver split, like yeah, that's maybe probably closer to like the Daniel Wright sort of thing. The Malachi Moore lining up on the wrong side of the formation is a totally different animal. Like that kind of stuff should not happen.
We'll give that to Malachi after the year he's had.
That's true. He
gets his big freshman mistake. Are we? Yeah. I feel like because I don't know. We're not gonna like talk about Arkansas really. Like they're a fine story. They're not gonna compete in this game. Like whatever. Good for y'all. But what like is? How do we feel about the Malachi as a freshman compared to Minka as a freshman?
Oh man.
Because like at the beginning of the season, it was like, oh, like Minka type compare, like here's this true freshman coming in the fall, like could be like Minka, and now it's like, is like I'm starting to feel like it's not so wild of a comparison. He's obviously not like the physical specimen that Minka was, because I mean Minka's like 6'1", 205, like something. He's like.
Minka's a big guy. Yeah.
Big NFL defensive back. And Malachi is obviously a good bit smaller than that. But, like, he's been damn near perfect in coverage for most of the season.
It's hard for me at this point, like, looking back to sort of disaggregate Minka's freshman season from his whole career. Like, when I think back to Minka's freshman season, I think about the fact that he scored those handful of touchdowns early in the season. Like he blocked the punt against Georgia, ran it back, and then he had 2 pick sixes against A&M. And it was just like crazy. Like the guy had scored like 3 touchdowns in their first like 6 games or whatever. But like I can't claim to like remember exactly how well Minka played in coverage that year, for instance. I mean, I'm sure it was good. You know what I mean? Was it as good as like what Malachi Moore is doing? Was it better than what I just really don't know. I think you're right to flag the physical differences. One thing that made Minka incredible, obviously, was he was so good against the run. He was such a good blitzer. He was just like incredible at everything.
And like they rarely asked Minka, and I don't think he did it all as his freshman year. He did it a little bit later because they made him like the starting corner in base, even though at that time they weren't playing a lot of base. Like That's
right. I forget about that sometimes. That he was actually him. Like 2016, him and Marlon were the 2 corners. That's funny.
Yeah, and I don't think Malachi would be as good of a pure outside corner as Minka was or would have been. But I mean, that's not what they're going to ask him to do. That's not really what they ever asked Minka to do. He played even the year where he was nominally the starting outside corner.
Nobody ever played fucking 2 wide receivers.
Right. So that like Minka is more physically suited to that, but it's kind of a moot comparison because that's not. It would be a waste of either of them to play in that role.
Right. Yeah. Mitch, how do you see it as far as like Malachi and Minka? And I don't know, like if there's other slot corners that I don't know, like. Well, Mitch, what do you think generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably the best. I think Minka's probably the best comparison we have, and I don't know that I could like who would even be another, like who would be the next best comparison.
Well, let's see. So the slot corner for the 2 years after Minka was Shaheem Carter, right?
Yeah.
And then before Minka, you had Geno Smith.
Yeah, I was like, God, who's the slot corner in 2014?
Yeah, Geno. And then before Geno, it was Jarek Williams. Remember him? Kind of like a big guy, good against the run.
I thought, was he the star? I thought he was the safety. He played like safety. He played money, didn't he?
Money, yeah.
I really thought he played star because I thought Landon played. I thought Landon.
Landon
money
was the
in
money.
2013. Until then, Sinceri got hurt, and then Landon moved to safety.
I think Jarek was the dime safety. I think he was like the 6th DB. Because Gino came in.
You think of Jabril Washington?
Oh,
Jabril Washington was the dime safety starting maybe that or and
we're gonna have
like
to check
the next
this,
year.
but because I thought Gino.
I think Jarek Williams was the starting star for a year.
Well, when did Gino move to safety? Because
2015.
Okay, well, because then he was the star like his freshman year, wasn't he?
Right. So Gino's freshman in 2012, right?
Yeah.
And then what's it called? Vinny's the star. And then Vinny just has a disaster against LSU.
Yeah.
And then they try to and then against A&M they moved D. Milner to star, like John Fulton outside, and then go after that they put Gino in at star, and Gino was supposed to be the star in 2013, and then during fall camp Gino goes and gets himself arrested in 2013, gets himself a DUI, right? And then I'm pretty sure that's when Jarek Williams came in, becomes the star. Gino then became money when Landon moved to safety at the end of the second half of 2013, and then Gino gets to play star in 2014 because Jarek's gone, and then 2015 Gino moves to safety. That's how I remember it.
I'm never going to challenge anything that you remember.
Yeah, so. No, not to that level of detail. Like, okay, if y'all ever think back to the 2013 and 14 seasons, like what the relative drops in defense in those years, just think about how unstable that secondary situation compared to the last 4 or 5 years.
4 years, yeah.
Think about the corner situation in 2013.
Their number one corner was Dion Ballou,
who was pretty good. He was always hurt, but he was pretty good. But he wasn't an NFL player.
Yeah.
You know? And then opposite him, it was John Fulton, Cyrus Jones, Eddie Jackson, and back to Cyrus Jones. They were just swapping guys in and out. I mean,
Mike Evans personally got 4 different corners benched in 2013. I don't think John Fulton's career was ever the same after that.
He never saw the field again. John Fulton gets pulled after the second series, and then Dion Ballou goes and hurts himself and has to come out of the game. So John Fulton has to go back in, which was he could not have been thrilled about that. So they're playing most of the game against A&M with Cyrus Jones. Now, not the 2015 Cyrus Jones, but the 2013 Cyrus Jones, and John Fulton at outside corners against that A&M team.
Yeah, and true freshman Eddie Jackson before he moved to safety.
Oh man, true freshman Eddie Jackson, who started one game against Ole Miss, I think, and had an interception, and then I don't think he played again until Oklahoma.
Well, and do you remember the crazy thing for him was, do you remember after that season he tore his ACL during spring practice.
That's right.
And then was back for the season.
Yeah.
Which is
maybe he played in the season opener.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That must have been the cleanest ACL tear in the history of knee injuries. I still don't know how that's possible.
Eddie had an interesting career too at Alabama. I mean, with all that back and forth at corner, and then,
I still think they won that championship if he doesn't get hurt in 2016.
Yeah, well, because then you don't have to deal with Minka moving into safety, and I know this is kind of sacrilege, but you don't have to deal with, Tony Brown playing star.
Yeah, is there a player Alabama fans love more?
I don't get it.
Relative, I love him. He's fantastic because the Crazy Tony nickname is well earned.
Right. And the video against LSU when he's walking without.
Is there a player Alabama fans love totally out of proportion to the quality of their play on the field more than Tony Brown? Because he was in coverage on Georgia's long touchdown to get got them to 20 in the 2018 championship game. Yeah.
And then he got benched.
Because he was
nobody remembers that.
because that was the year Minka played every single, like I think he was technically the starting corner in base, and then he was the star in nickel. And
which year we're talking? We're talking 2016?
17.
17.
Because I'm talking about the long touchdown George, like after Tua came in and they got it. Like,
right.
They had the long touchdown to make it 20-7, I think, after they had gotten the first touchdown with Tua in. And because Tony was the star in dime that year.
Right.
Because in dime they moved Minka over to the money. And Tony had a lot of plays like that, man. Like he was not good for most of his Alabama career.
Who replaced Tony in that game?
Shoot, 2017. Who would have been?
Who came in?
Probably Shaheem, right?
That could be.
Because he was. Like, I remember he played a little against, like, because he was the backup star for, like, 3 years.
Right.
Savion wasn't there yet, right? That was next year.
No, because he was only there for 1 year.
Yeah. Because your outside corners were Averett and Levi Wallace.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was Shaheem. Yeah, that's it. I think that's like that perfectly encapsulates sort of the weirdness of the whole Tony Brown mythology is the fact that like in Tony Brown's last game in the national championship, he got benched because of performance.
Well, no, it's funny because he came in because he and Marlon were in the same class. Alabama signed 2 5-star corners in the 2014 class.
And Marlon was the one that got redshirted.
Marlon redshirted, yeah. And Tony played a bunch the first year.
Wasn't Tony also on track?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
They both were, weren't they?
Tony, Marlon, not really. Tony, like, they wanted Marlon. Marlon probably was the better. He was, like, really good 400 hurdles. He was like a junior Olympics champion or something in the 400 hurdles. But Tony was the only one that was like consistently coming to practice. They also wanted Anthony Averett.
Did you ever get to interact with Tony through track?
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
Please tell us you have a good Tony Brown story. Statute of limitations has to have passed on that. So
it's been like 7 years.
The team got into some pretty big trouble. Well, it never officially. There was a party like the fall. It was like before there was a track party, and I know Tony got in trouble. Like the cops showed up, and Tony got in trouble.
This was public, right? This stuff was public about it, right?
I don't remember, honestly.
Okay, but it's very possible that you just told us about this, and I just think it's public because I remember you saying.
Yeah, and yeah, like we almost never saw Tony again after that. I was kind of surprised after that they even let Tony come back. But no, I mean, like there was like I don't know, the day-to-day interactions were not like he's not like a crazy day-to-day person.
Yeah.
That's right. Marlon was there because Marlon, I remember Marlon came over. There was some fight that we were watching at our house, and we had a couple of track people over, and we had like a two TV setup in our living room, and we had like the fight on one of the TVs, and on the other TV, Marlon was just sitting there playing GTA. But all he was doing was just driving around. He wasn't like doing missions. He wasn't like shooting or doing anything.
It was like obeying the traffic law.
He would he'd have like whatever their version of a Lambo was, and then he'd get bored of that and go to his garage and get out like a motorcycle and he was just like chill. Like that was. I don't know why that stuck with me.
There's like a real.
I love this idea of Marlon treating GTA as like Microsoft Auto Simulator.
The only thing I know of Marlon is like his like basically like aside from like what he does, football wise is like his Twitter account, and there's like there's real like innocence about his Twitter account where he'll just like pose like these like random thoughts about like different things.
Well, he'll like tweet about upcoming college football games and be like, analyst hump time. Like, I think so and so is going to beat so and so, and then the team he picked to lose wins by like 3 touchdowns, and he'll be like,
wrong, like all the time. He's like always wrong.
He also has a separate Instagram for his fluffy white cat named Snowball, which I strongly recommend to all of you. Like, yeah, Marlon is in general one of the absolute best Twitter follows among former Alabama players.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy that would have the Instagram for that. I can see Marlon then being the guy who just sits on playing GTA, just driving the cars, just
obeying traffic laws.
Just in his own world, man. Like people are kind of hanging out, having fun around him, and he's zoned in, driving around. I wish I had better Crazy Tony stories, but I don't remember anything.
No, it's all right. I mean,
because like
the Marlon story's great.
Yeah. Is Tony still like? I think the funniest thing about Tony is that like he's for a while was on the Packers team, like not just on their practice squad, and was like playing some.
He's bounced around a little bit. But yeah, he's like actually been on NFL active roster. I mean, which tells you like what kind of an athlete he is, that he has continued to keep that despite a relatively underwhelming.
Apparently, it's doing the thing again where the video cuts out when Carter drops. I don't know.
Yeah, I just I checked on that. Yeah, he's with the Bengals right now. I can't tell if he's on the active roster or not, but. Yeah, I just checked the streaming software and it dropped the video. I cannot seem to get it back. I don't really know why. I am not an OBS expert, unfortunately, but
no, that's fine.
Whatever.
They can still hear us. Yeah.
Audio only.
God, we got pretty
anyway, so best comparison for Malachi Moore, I think, is Minka, just because I don't think I don't like everybody else. All of the other stars have basically been by default, and I feel like Malachi just kind of like won it. Malachi and Minka were kind of the only two that just kind of came in and won it with their talent.
Yeah. Dean Milner is the only other like really talented star that I can think of.
Yeah, that's right. He was the star in 2010, wasn't he?
Yeah.
No, I think him and Dre played outside in 2010 because Menzie was hurt for most of that year, and then Menzie comes back in 2011, and then Menzie and Dre play outside, and they move Milner inside.
Yeah.
But like that's just man, that team had some players.
And that wasn't even a situation. That was because I feel like the star has almost become more specialized.
Yeah.
Over the years, like D was a situation where it's like we have 3 corners and we have because it's sometimes different like that. Like sometimes it's just a situation where it's like we have 3 corners and we need to get them all 3 on the field.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's like we have this guy who is really because Malachi is really more of a safety type. Like I think that is probably where his future is. Maybe like I don't know if they. Would move him out of there and get him at safety. Like probably not next year because they get back all of the safeties, but like that could be a move. It's more likely that he moves there in the future than moves to outside corner.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, against it depends on the team, but against a lot of these teams, like star's almost the more important position, right?
Yeah. Against some of these like more limited quarterbacks that really can't hit the more outside parts of the field.
Yeah, this came up. I don't remember how it came. I was talking some sort of Twitter thing, wondering like if Alabama could do it over again in 2016, and at the time I was 100% for moving Minka to safety, but like if they could do it over again, if they would have just kept Minka at star, and I don't know, just like at safety, just played Hootie or something. I don't know. I mean, at the time, it seemed like the obvious move to move Minka to safety, but like, I mean, I don't know. That person's always around the ball.
Yeah, like great corners can sometimes just. I mean, you can either scheme to go away from them, or just by kind of game state, they don't get involved, and especially deep safeties or safeties that play a lot that way, sometimes they just don't have a huge impact,
right,
just because of the nature of the position. And obviously it's limiting to your offense in certain ways when there's a really great player at one of those spots and you have to game plan to go away from them, but you can. Whereas a guy at star or money playing one of those inside spots, like, they're pretty much going to be involved no matter what. And so it's a really critical, like, you can see why Saban liked keeping Minka at those spots so much.
Exactly. I mean, Surtain is never involved. It's like he's not even out there a lot of these games.
Which is, I don't
know, like, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's like he's like college Darrelle Revis this year.
Yeah.
He's like, you just put him out there and whoever is his guy is functionally erased from the game, which is like, it prevents him from making like impact plays, but it limits offenses so much when you can just put him on a guy and that guy is no longer involved in the offense.
I feel bad for Joe because like, LSU's completed some passes on the first couple drives or whatever, and you see some tweets or whatever, like, Josh Jobe struggling. It's like, well, they're throwing the ball at him every single play because they can't throw it to the other
He's
side.
Consistent, like, he's got a crazy number of tackles and pass breakups this year because if the teams are going to throw it at wide receiver, well, like, they're not going to throw it bad, so like they're going to throw it hit. Man, he's playing great. Like, you just, I don't know, you're going to give up some catches when teams are throwing at you every time because they're not going to go with the other guy.
And honestly, like, you might even rather go with Jobe than Malachi Moore with how Malachi Moore's been in coverage. So like, Jobe might be like, of all three of them, he might be the first choice.
Yeah.
It was interesting those first couple drives. Like, it really struck me those really tight sets that LSU was using. It's I can't say for certain if I mean, they're certainly obviously not the first team to do that against Alabama. I can't say for certain if they're the first team to do it with that sort of volume against Alabama. It felt like it, though, because it felt like they were lining up like it every play. You really want to force this team into and Mitch, you tweeted that thing about how they are in man coverage versus how they are in zone coverage, right? So what was it? What was that again?
I don't remember the specifics, but they were like half a yard better in man than zone on a not insignificant number of plays. And those were the pre-Auburn game numbers, and then I remember I checked it again after the Auburn game, and the gap got a little bit larger. I did not check after the LSU game. But basically, they're better in man. They're basically clearly better in man. Now, situationally, when are they running man versus zone? I mean, that kind of matters. But
man plays to their strengths. You just let those three guys. I mean, your three best players. I mean, well, I'm not three best players on the whole defense, but you're certainly your three best players in the secondary are your three corners. You just let them play man, and this certainly isn't the strongest group of linebackers coverage wise that Alabama's had. So, you take a little pressure off them in terms of not having to like take receivers that are coming through their, sort of coming through their zones and stuff. So I think it just makes sense to me that they're, that they're better in man. But
Yeah.
these teams are running these formations, and I mean LSU obviously that was the prime example in those tight sets where you just literally can't play man.
It's going to be really interesting to see what Dan Mullen does against them
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, because they do a lot. Like, I mean, Florida isn't even pretending that they care about running the ball anymore.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because
Yeah.
obviously I was looking at that, I haven't watched that much Florida this year, but I was looking because of the Mac Trask stuff, and it's like, oh my god,
Well,
their
and
running
like
backs are
they're kind of starting to do what LSU did last year. Like, they're in empty a lot. And it's kind of the same. Like, now, Trask isn't nearly as mobile or as good on the run as Joe Burrow was. But they're in empty a lot. And they're just like, but they have Pitts out there, and they have a running back, and they have like 3 different running backs, none of whose names I know, but they're all basically interchangeable, and they're all pretty good at catching the ball. And a lot of times they'll start with that guy in the backfield and basically put him out and then motion him out all the way into the number 1 receiver spot. And a lot of times teams will choose to play zone on that rather than throw a linebacker all the way out on the perimeter. But what happens when you do that is that you get a linebacker trying to carry either Tony or Pitts, which is very, very bad. So, like, I think they're going to want to play a lot of man on Florida just because, I don't know, I'd rather have Christian Harris out wide on one of their running backs than Dylan Moses on Kadarius Toney. And honestly, as much as I can, I'm going to put Pat on Kyle Pitts, because, like, that's, not that Alabama really follows receivers or anything like that, and I don't know how much Florida's going to line him up where you can, but, like, yeah, it's tough. So
I wonder if
I'll be interested to see if Mullen, like, takes a page out of that LSU playbook and tries some bunch stuff against them to keep them from playing man.
Right. I also wonder, if this is one of those matchups where, like, even on standard downs against 3 wide receiver sets, if Alabama's going to be playing dime, like early in the game, even. I mean, you probably should, right?
They're not going to run the ball. Like, they're not going to do it. And if they do occasionally, you'd rather give up those 6-7 yard gains than, give up a long completion to Pitts.
I guess the question is, though, like, if you do that on standard downs, then who do you take off the field? Like, are you taking one of the inside linebackers off the field? And if you are, like, which one? Because, like, I think, what they've been doing a lot in dime, like on passing downs, is they'll play both of the inside linebackers, but they'll rush Christian Harris. Now, obviously, you're not going to be lining up with 4 down and Christian Harris being one of those 4 down and dime on standard downs. So, like, I don't know, are they going to play like a 3-2? Or would they play like a 3-2 sort of deal? Or would they take one of the inside linebackers off the field? I don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot of, like, even, like, 1-4 dime looks this year where they put, and that's usually in, like, pure passing situations where you've got, like, Anderson and Allen and Barmore, basically, and, like, that's your front. And then you bring 1 or 2 of Harris or Moses up the A gaps. But yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna want to play a lot of dime because, like, you'd rather, like, in the NFL this year, the Rams are playing great defense by basically like they're playing too high all the time and just being like, okay, you want to run the ball, run the ball. You're not gonna win an NFL game just running the ball on us the whole time.
You think Saban would do that?
No. not a chance. Like, you could persuade him to play more dime, but he's not gonna, like, just choose to sit in too high and let you run for 6 yards at a time. No, that is completely, it would eat his soul. Even if you could, like, prevent a, like, utterly airtight factual argument that this is going to win you games more than anything else, it would burn him on the inside to give it up to the run that way.
Yeah. There's just no way. Yeah, I mean, if people thought that like getting him to change offensive, styles or whatever, like that was a big deal. You want to stop Saban from mixing up his coverages, playing a lot of one high, playing a lot of like combo coverages and stuff. You want him to sit back in like 2D shells every play. That is never gonna happen.
Yeah, like even like okay, they played more against Mississippi State. They played more like rush 3, drop 8 than I think we maybe thought they would. But even like the play he broke down for his little, he does that now where he just does like a one, little 2-minute video. Yeah. The play he broke down was Pat's pick 6, and they were playing ripless cover 3 on that play. Like, like he's willing to simplify on defense more than I think he's maybe gotten credit for lately. Like they've simplified this year. They simplified in 2017 a lot. Like I've heard that there was sort of a push from like Jeremy Pruitt kind of got a little, like pushed him for that a lot to simplify the defense a little bit, and that helped them get better later in the year. But he's never gonna completely let go of his 2-gap cover 3 match roots. Like that is never going away. He's never giving that up.
I mean, like it's never gonna be like a game plan. Like even for like a single game plan going into a game, I don't think you could even really convince them. Though, like maybe as a halftime adjustment, like hey, maybe we should do some more of this. But yeah, I agree.
And if he's got,
his halftime.
Yeah.
Well, I was just say his halftime adjustments when things are going bad is just usually play a lot of cover 1. So like. That's like, when he can't stop somebody, he's just says, fuck it, I'm just going to play cover 1 for the whole second half. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if there was ever a team to do it against, it's Florida.
Yeah. And like he'll, in situations where he's got like, because this is college football, right? Like sometimes you're Alabama, like you're going to be just flat better than teams.
Exactly.
A lot of times. And he'll play plenty of 2 high if he's got a front that just absolutely dominates people, and you don't even care about getting the numbers because they'll just beat him up front. But like he's never just gonna concede that as a matter of like defensive philosophy.
Yeah. As an early prediction here, I think that Alabama-Florida game is going to look a lot like the Alabama-Oklahoma playoff game from a couple years ago. I think it's going to look a lot like that.
It's a very similar. Like they're going to give up some points, but the gap here
is. Florida's going to score 30. I mean, Florida's probably going to score 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you
just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
That's football. That's football in 2020. I mean, you just got to be okay with that. Because when it's going to be easy to be okay with that when your team's scoring 50.
Yeah, like Trask is playing extremely well, and Pitts is maybe one of the best receiving tight ends in college ever, and they've got enough supplementary playmakers to do it. And Mullen game plans really, really well, and it is about as adaptable of a play caller as maybe anybody in college football, right. But they're just, I mean, it's the simple calculus of like 2 teams that have really great offenses, and one of them has a pretty good defense and one of them has a pretty bad defense. And that's like sometimes it literally is as simple as that. A lot of times it's literally as simple as that. So but we will have more to say about that next week. So
yeah.
We will see how
I wanted to do a little playoff talk quickly.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of playoff talk. Mitch, what was the scenario that we were talking about on Twitter where Cincinnati became the favorite to get in?
So that would have been.
Can that no longer happen?
No, it can still happen.
Okay, so what was that? What needed to happen? I don't remember.
So Notre Dame beating Clemson again in the ACC championship.
All right.
So we were looking at if A&M wins out, But that was when they had 2 games.
Okay, now they got 1. Right.
So they have 1 game. Cincy winning out, but that was when they had 2 games, and now they have 1 game.
But they got Tulsa, right? Their game's Tulsa.
Yeah, they were set to play Tulsa back-to-back in a regular season and then the championship, but the regular season game got canceled.
Okay.
And I think there was I'm trying to remember I think I set it to where Alabama beats Florida, but that was either mostly baked in or
right. So Alabama beats Florida. Ohio State goes because obviously they win out. Notre Dame goes because obviously they win out. Clem's got 2 losses, so they're done. So now it's just who gets the 4th spot.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been assuming, and I probably mentioned this, and Mitch, I think that's probably what you were responding to. I've been assuming the whole time that it was basically definitely be Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the case.
Yeah. So I did. What were the rankings Tuesday night? I haven't actually looked. So, did anything change?
I don't think so. I think everything stays the same.
I think somebody may have, and I don't know who, but I think somebody may have jumped Cincy for the 7 spot.
Okay, so Cincy went back to 8.
Yeah,
because it wouldn't have been Georgia.
Did Iowa State?
It was Iowa State.
Jump to 7. Okay.
Oh, it was Iowa State. Oh,
okay.
And honestly, I think Oklahoma is going to beat them in the Big 12 championship game. Oklahoma is a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season.
But that's not good. But that's not good for Cincinnati's chances if they're being jumped by a 2-loss team.
Yeah,
correct. So since that conversation, we saw basically the committee put more distance between A&M and Cincinnati by way of a 2-loss Big 12 team.
Okay. Okay.
So playoff predictor is built on normal seasons where teams have the same number of games and so I think it's interesting to look at, but I tend to agree with your overall analysis that it's probably A&M.
Okay. So how do we get Cincinnati in?
A&M loss, probably.
A&M loss.
Are they actually going to play another game? Are they scheduled to play a game on the 19th?
A&M?
Yeah.
Yeah. Against.
Don't remember who.
Because they put out the schedule for that day. Like, they were supposed to play Ole Miss this weekend, which they could have easily lost that game.
Right. Yeah, so maybe it actually benefits them a little bit. I mean, I
think it does, honestly.
Let's see. Who are they? Who do they got? All right, so A&M's final game
Tennessee
is against Tennessee. So okay, well, that's okay. It's in Knoxville, but I can't talk myself into that. So Florida, right? So Alabama, Notre Dame. And what if Northwestern beats Ohio State? Does Northwestern go if they beat Ohio State?
I don't remember where they are in the rankings. Are they like 9th or 10th?
They are 14th.
That's not happening.
No.
So if they're not going,
if they beat Ohio State and Notre Dame beats Clemson, is it Texas A&M and Cincinnati?
They beat Ohio State.
Maybe.
Oklahoma or Ohio State might have something to say.
Yeah.
We could get our first 2-loss team. But this is obviously all unrealistic because
it involves Ohio State losing to Northwestern.
Right. Yeah. Ohio State's not losing to Northwestern. So I mean this is all just probably going to play. Like, the scenarios are fun, but like Alabama's going to probably be Florida. Oh, now wait. Well, I said okay. Alabama's probably going to be Florida. That's going to put them in. And then assuming if Alabama beats Florida, that guarantees Notre Dame's spot, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, unless Clemson absolutely blows them out.
Right. So that basically guarantees their spot. Ohio State wins out, that guarantees their spot. Is Clemson going to beat Notre Dame?
Probably.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they did it.
Okay.
Mildly.
But I don't think it's going to be the type of blowout that would put Notre Dame out of there. Like, this Notre Dame team is good, legitimately very, like, they're legit, like, top 4 caliber team. They're not, like, I don't think, like, top level talent wise they're on the level of other teams, but this is not 2018 or 2012 Notre Dame. Like Ian Book is good. Like, their offensive line is really legit. Like, I think they don't have the playmakers outside to act like they could not score consistently on Alabama because they just don't have those guys. But, like, I don't know, Book would probably get a lot of time to throw because they, like, that offensive line really is real. But,
well, odds are we get to see that, right?
Yeah.
Now, if things happen as we expect, Clemson wins, Ohio State wins out, Alabama wins out. I mean, it's a guarantee. I mean, it's weird that they're going to have to do that with Ohio State, that they're going to have to move them to 3, but they're going to move them to 3, right?
Yeah, I don't, like, they say that they don't avoid rematches and stuff, but they're not gonna give us Clemson Notre Dame 3. Like,
and then how do they justify that? Are they, like, I mean, you could justify it and you can just say, well, Ohio State won. They'll just say conference championships are the tiebreaker. Ohio State and Notre Dame were close, and Ohio State has a conference championship, and Ohio State and Notre Dame doesn't, despite the fact that they played very different amount of games.
And, like, it's very easy. Like, as much as they would like to sometimes pretend it's different, a lot of time that 0 in the loss column, even in a year like this, is a lot of times pretty determinative.
So you'll get Clemson as the 2, Ohio State as the 3, Notre Dame as the 4.
Or you get, if Notre Dame does win, you get Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, A&M.
God, I just, like, even...
Wait, say that. Do that once more. Run that one once more.
Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, A&M.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, not the matchups.
Right, 1, 2,
That's
3,
the
4.
matchup.
Sorry.
No.
No. So Alabama 1, Notre Dame 2, Ohio State 3, A&M 4.
Okay.
Right. If Notre Dame beats Clemson, yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Carter. Sorry.
It's just, like, who wants to see that, man? Like, just put Cincy in. Like, it's going to be a blowout either way. Just put Cincy in there. Like, and then, you never have to deal with people screeching about you being unjustly, like, unfair to the G5 ever again. You can be like, look, we put Cincinnati in there. Like they can buy themselves so much, like, I don't know, goodwill or, like, a nominal shield against criticism there by just putting, like...
Well, the Tulsa win's going to be that would be a good win.
It's a good win.
Yeah.
That's a good win.
It's a better win than Tennessee.
Right. And Cincinnati has no losses. I mean, it's so tough, though, obviously, because, like, A&M's 1 losses to Alabama in Alabama. If only A&M had just lost to somebody else.
Yeah.
But that's what they're going to say. They're just going to be like, A&M's 1 losses to Alabama, and that basically doesn't even count. So,
But, like, you can't...
which is true. That's the right decision, I guess. Like, if you're going to say, like, what's the best team, like, it's the right decision to put it A&M. But,
like, you can't possibly get around the question by putting A&M at the 3 spot. Like, no one's going to buy that. That you just, especially
to avoid the rematch with Alabama.
Yeah, because especially in this scenario, like, Ohio State's going to have a conference championship. Notre Dame is going to have a conference championship. Like, there's no way you can say, because you haven't put any precedent to saying, like, oh, well, A&M's played way more games than Ohio State, and
right,
they had to play Alabama, and Ohio State didn't play anybody of that caliber. Like, you could have justified that if you had been ranking that way all along, but you haven't.
Right. Yeah.
So if you put A&M in, the only choice is to put them in the 4 spot in which case you're guaranteeing a rematch with a team that beat them by 28.
Yeah.
Is 28 the smallest margin of victory for Alabama this year?
Ole Miss, 15.
Ole Miss.
Oh, sorry, Ole Miss. Yes. Okay.
That stupid game.
How quickly I forget.
Yeah. No, it's
Alabama still cover. They still cover that second half line though. They still cover.
It was 15 against them, 17 against Georgia, and 19 against Mizzou. Is their third closest win of the year.
Yeah. The Missouri game. That was a Missouri. I mean, they were so much better than Missouri that day. How did they only score? They only scored like 39 points in that game, right?
Well, because they pulled the starters and actually
let Bryce
throw in that game.
One game. That's the one game where
he has 18 attempts on the year, and like 8 of those attempts came in the first game against Mizzou.
That was the one game. I wonder why. Like, why that game does Bryce get a big look, and then he doesn't get a look the rest of the season?
Well, I mean, I wonder how much of a competition was it?
That's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, it may have been like.
You think that's possible? You think that's possible that they weren't completely sold at that point?
No, I mean, I think they were probably sold, but like I don't know. I was trying to talk myself into something there.
But that's one way to explain it. I mean, that would be one way to explain it. That like in the back of their minds, like even they thought there was maybe like a 5% chance that Bryce like could still be the starter at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think they wanted to see more of what they had with him, and not that I didn't think he played bad. I thought if anything he played pretty well, but just not like maybe just not enough to warrant.
He had a fumble on a sack.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but he made several like really good throws.
Yeah,
Mac played real well that game though.
Mm-hmm.
He threw a couple. There was a couple to. There was like one to Waddle. I think it was like right before the half, down in the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
The one where Waddle like slipped down.
He almost got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. That throw was ridiculous.
Dropped it in a bucket.
Yeah, Mac. I feel like maybe just one thing to close on. I mean, we could talk about this every week. Mac is such a cool story.
Like he's. Like maybe not to the extent because I don't know, maybe doesn't have the physical tools. Although he's got a bigger arm than Burrow does, and like before Burrow got hurt, like his arm strength was a little bit of a problem at times with the Bengals this year. But you know he's not going to go top 5 overall. But like he's legitimately kind of burrowing it here. Like,
is he a first round pick at this point? Like, is he being mocked in the first round?
Yeah,
I think. I didn't know if he was being mocked, but I would say like I'd be surprised if there's not a there's not a team that's in the late first round that has like kind of set on quarterback, but like not for much longer. Like maybe the Steelers or somebody.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a mock draft junkie. Like I enjoy checking those things just as a matter of course, and I am generally seeing him mocked between like 20 and 50 right now, so late first, early second. Because I could see him either going to like any team that is set at like has a quarterback but may not for a whole lot. Like I don't know if the Falcons pick him up early in the second round, like that would make a lot of sense.
How is he this good? How is he this good? I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, look, I mean, he's got some talent around him, and the scheme is, he's obviously, it's a scheme that if you can, you know, master it, then you're going to be probably successful in the scheme. But like mastering is you know the trick, and I mean, he obviously has, and it's helping him, and he's throwing to a lot of open receivers. But like he's been great.
Well, he has a lot of time to throw, and the guys are open, but like his accuracy down the field is unbelievable. That's not the scheme. That's not the protection. That's not the receivers. That's him. And like the movement in the pocket when he's sliding away from pressure or climbing it,
he does
that's
move well.
Him. That is all him.
As awkward as it looks, it always works.
It does. Yeah. There was that one play where like his feet was like a real happy feet against LSU, but then he threw like a dart over the middle.
Yeah. Well, he's sort of like if you compare him to a guy like Tua or like, I don't know, Kyler or something, he doesn't maybe generate as much pure velocity, especially on the short stuff, because he's really more of like a traditional kind of overarm thrower. Which means that he doesn't like torque all the way through and like use his lower body and get that zip on it, but he does like he can't really throw on the run, but because he can kind of like whip his upper body and use his arm, he's pretty good at throwing off platform, if not on the move.
Yeah,
because like he's had a lot of throws under pressure where he's been like about to get hit, and he just kind of has to like turn his upper body and like use his arm to generate velocity, and he does that pretty well.
It's such a cool story. I mean, I'm super excited for Bryce next year, obviously, but like...
Well, it's like, we joked before the season. It's like, oh, no, what are we going to do about this? Like, what if Mac is, like, just pretty good and comes back, and then we lose Bryce because of that, and you can't, like, what are we going to do? And I was like, well, Mac just has to be a first-round pick, and then it's all solved. And he's doing it. Like, he's just, like, the oh, LOL, it's all solved if this happens scenario, like, is the thing that's actually happening.
Yeah, at this point, like, there's no, like, I feel like there was, like, some chance, maybe, 4 or 5 weeks ago that, like, Mac could be back next year. He's not going to be back next year. I mean, there's no way, right?
I don't, like, maybe if they don't win the championship and he's, like, he's supposedly the type of guy that by all reports, like, really loves being at Alabama.
And stick around. Like, I mean, none of the backup quarterbacks stick around, and I don't blame them, but he stuck around.
Yeah. Like, so I can see him coming back just to win it all if they don't this year. But, like, his stock's not getting any higher, and he's losing his two main weapons and most of his offensive line after this year. And Najee, like, and he's not going to get taller or faster or stronger next year. Like,
yeah, it would be a big mistake for him to come back financially. It would be a big mistake.
Like, he's playing incredibly, and like this is the strike while the iron is hot moment for him. Which is I can't believe this. If they beat Florida, he's gonna win the Heisman. Like, period.
It's gonna come down to the SEC championship game, basically.
And after 2 years, like, after Tua gets the ankle sprain and loses the Heisman because of that, and then gets hurt, like, we had the greatest quarterback in Alabama history that misses out on 2 chances at the Heisman because of injuries.
Jones.
And for fucking Mac Jones to come in immediately afterwards and be the Alabama quarterback that wins the Heisman is
Mac Jones.
Would he be your QB3 in this draft?
I haven't seen the BYU kid play much, so I can't.
Like, I think you could make an argument for him. Like, his range is probably 3 to 5, 3 to 6, maybe, if there's somebody that likes Trask better. Although I think he's a better, like, Trask, for being as big as he is, doesn't have that big of an arm. Like, he doesn't. He's very good. I'm past my, like, Kyle Trask slander phase, but, like, he's not. He's a big dude, but other than that, there's nothing impressive about him physically. Like, Mac definitely throws a better deep ball.
Yeah, as a somewhat uneducated college football viewer, having only watched Zach Wilson a little bit and having watched none of, like, Trey Lance or anybody else, like, I'd probably be the most confident in drafting him as, like, the third quarterback. But
I mean, at least you get to have a guy who's basically been in what's almost an NFL system, and you've seen him a big success, obviously, and
I mean, I feel like that's as close to an NFL system as there is in college right now, really.
Yeah. That feels safer to me than like Wilson, just based on the little I know about him.
Well, and Wilson's been a starter. This is like at least his third year starting, I think, for them.
Yeah,
And
he took a big leap this year.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if I trust that. Even if the film looks good, I don't know if I trust it as much.
Max just the second he stepped on the field as a starter.
Well, I would be surprised if he is QB3 in the way it turns out, because I think somebody's going to fall in love with the physical tools for either Wilson or Lance, and maybe both. But like, yeah.
I just want to see Matt get to go first round. That's what I want. Anywhere in the first round, I'll be fine with.
I want to see him go to a good team, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the Steelers.
Patriot, like Falcon. I like the idea of maybe the Falcons, Steelers. Like, so the Falcons are going to be picking like
Falcon, and the Patriots are probably going to be picking too high. Also.
With the Falcons, it would probably have to be early second round, but
yeah.
The Steelers' idea is kind of cool, though. I don't know what their backup situation is if they have somebody young there.
Is their backup still Josh Dobbs?
No, last year, I just blanked on. Was like a Big 12 kid, right?
It was Mason Rudolph.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Right. That was because he had the whole thing with Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett. Yeah.
Okay, so
no wonder Mike Gundy recruited him.
Well, what about the Broncos? Where are the Broncos going to draft?
Mac's not tall enough to get drafted by John Elway. He's only 6'2", not tall enough.
You don't think they like Locke going forward? Is that
if they're smart, they don't. But I don't trust them to make good personnel decisions. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm in a keeper league, and I'm probably going to keep Judy. So I need some value.
Going forward. Yeah, I thought Judy was the kind of guy who I would think would have been like. It's just not it's not a great spot for him, but I thought that he could step in and be like really, really good on day one, and obviously he just hasn't. And Ruggs also is just Ruggs just obviously had quite the moment.
The Raiders aren't really they don't seem to have grasped the idea that his speed is an advantage on not go routes.
Right.
They don't. I don't think they're using him terribly well. And I don't know. I could see.
He's supposed to be like Tyreek Hill, right? That's like the whole idea. So, Tyreek Hill, he runs a full route tree. He's moving him around all over the place, running him, short routes, long routes, whatever. So, I would like to see that, but he's. Yeah. No. But maybe Devontae will be the guy who steps in day one, wherever he goes, or Waddle.
Hey, I'm just hoping the Dolphins draft one of them next year because they get those 2 first rounders.
That would be awesome. Is Waddle going to go ahead of Devontae?
I would have said yes right before he got hurt.
Yeah, now I don't know. Earlier in the year, I would have said yes, but I don't know now.
The top 3 receivers in this class, with those 2 and Jamar Chase, are so good.
Really, really stacked. And then you also have Marshall and Rashad Bateman and Rondale Moore. It's an insane receiver class.
Maybe all first rounders.
Yeah, it could be 5 or 6 guys in the first round this year. It's a really, really deep class.
I want Waddle to do what's right for him. It goes without saying, probably. But it would be so cool if he came back for the playoff. It would be that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And, I think I mentioned this maybe, previously, but, him and Surtain are in this weird spot where they would be, in this group of guys at Alabama who were basically there for their whole time, their whole college careers. and didn't win a championship with this under the Saban Alabama teams. Obviously, it wouldn't be their fault. It wouldn't be Waddle and Surtain wouldn't be responsible for that. But they're kind of in this weird position where they would kind of be the first guys to do that. And I'm sure Waddle doesn't want to leave without a championship. So
yeah, like if they don't win it, I could see Waddle coming back more than Pat.
Like I don't think either one of them's coming back. I only mean that in terms of, I meant that more not about them coming back, but in terms of like Waddle really pushing himself to want to get back on the field to try to win. You know what I mean? Like to try to be a part of it and try to win a championship. Like, no, I don't think. I mean, Pat's definitely not coming back, and like Waddle, that's. I mean, the only way Waddle comes back, I guess, is if like for some reason the injury really hurts his draft stock, which I don't think it's going to. So no, they're gone. The whole offense is gone. But that's for another show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks for joining us.